I'm going to introduce you to, without this person, this wouldn't happen. Please welcome Lawrence Kenwright.
Thank you. So 3 months ago, we came up with an idea, and it was totally to go up against the fraud and corruption, which is an absolute fact, and you've heard it from all the great scousers here tonight, talking about the trials and tribulations of a council that has been fraudulent and corrupt and hasn't looked after the people that voted it into power. This council has to go. We can't put up with it any longer. I know there are various people in this room that have been abused by this council. I'm one of them. So yes, a lot of people say, Lawrence Kenwright's got an axe to grind. He's coming at this. Absolutely, absolutely. My axe might be a little bit sharper than yours, though. When these people come after you, and it will take your breath away, it certainly took mine away. And I'm not embarrassed to say that when Joe Anderson came after me, it was like going to war, and I had a pea shooter, and he had a Kalashnikov and bombs and everything. And he came after me with building control, health and safety, licensing, every tool in the box, and he beat me. It was only when he got arrested that stopped it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here today. I lost many years of my life working extremely hard, but that isn't the issue. That put the fire in my belly to go into battle. And I lay off for 3 long years, waiting silently in order to find out just how this council operates. Who are the main culprits? How do they do it? And believe me, between the cluster of people that sit in our committee, we all know how they do it. Can it be proven in a court of law? Not really. Well, it can't, sadly, because they use a situation called delegated powers, which means that doesn't go through standardized council process, but it is still legal. When they want to give away an asset to a friend for £1, and later on, 3 months later, it's worth 5.9 million, which has happened numerous times, by the way. Can they go to jail for that? No, because it goes through council process, and in that council process are councillors who have been voted into their positions, which makes it legal. Moderately corrupt, maybe, but still legal. The only way we can overturn these people, that's if you want to call them that, well, is to beat them at the ballot box. To liberate Liverpool is to liberate Merseyside, is to liberate the North. It's the pebble in the pond that creates the tidal wave. Based on bottom-up politics, not based on bullshit trickle-down. We've all been sold a trickle-down politics where the billionaires become multiple billionaires while everyone else loses money. Money gets printed out. That money then becomes worth less, and that's called inflation, which is a taxation on the poor. And we've all just seen how that works. 1, at the petrol stations, and 2, at the supermarkets. It's made for a very tough climate for everyone. And that's going to be this way now for at least another 6 to 9 months. But if we can win, and when I say win, if we can win 30 seats, then we'll be the dominant party. If we are the dominant party, then we can use our own manifesto. Our manifesto is about openness and transparency. It's about missed opportunities, because most of the people that work within the council are there because of friendships, not because of skill set. And it's also about resilience. What do we do when the next COVID comes? How do we react? Do we need to go to another meeting before we know what we're going to do, how we're going to react to it? Or do we want to already set in stone? So there are certain parts of what we want to bring as our governance, which is totally different than what the governance is there today. Today is about depression, loss, always on the negative. We can create an awful lot of our own wealth with the assets that we have already been gifted. Liverpool has 15,000 properties and an immeasurable amount of land. There is no reason for Liverpool to go around with our heads held low. Firstly, the left of the Labour Party has left the party. Labour Party has gone down from 600,000 members, the largest political party in Europe, since Corbyn's demise and the way he treated Corbyn. It's now gone down to 400,000. I would say that most of the left-wing activists in Liverpool are obviously part of the Labour Party. They've gone. And how do I know that? It's because when you look at the online negative comments and positive comments, normally it's 1 equals 1. But now there are only negative, there are no positive. So the left of the party has left the party and doesn't want to defend what they see as a Conservative in Keir Starmer. So there's a lot of angles here for us, which brings me to the point of the timing of this. It's so unique. It will never, ever come again, where we have the calamity of fraud and corruption and the obvious decline of the Labour Party in Liverpool. It's clear to see. When we come up with what we believe is the right time to go up against the Labour Party, we have a very strong fraud and corruption statement to stay. Labour Party have been in power for 13 years. And now they say we're going to create better jobs, better working environments. Well, where have you been for 13 years? In general, are down the backbone of the city, which is the north of the city. The leafy suburbs is somewhere where we're not going. We're not going to go up against the Lib Dems too much, apart from you, Susie.
Hello? Hello? I need all the help I can get.
Susie's going up against Richard Kemp. But in general, we're not going up against the Liberals or the Lib Dems, but absolutely all against Labour. We are totally 100% against Labour. We do not want Labour to get back in again. If we are successful at the ballot box, and we do get enough councillors, and we do ensure that we create the cabinet and therefore follow our own manifesto, if that is the case, I think it's going to be very hard for Labour to get back in again. Because as soon as we get in, the first thing we're going to do is raise enough capital from the assets or the land that was freely given away to friendships before. We're going to use that land, arm it with plan of permission, put it out there into the public domain to be sold, in order for very early on for us to have the monies we need to invest in the local communities. So all the local communities will have funding day one, well, not day one, maybe 6 months on, but there'll be money there for all of the youth centres, community centres, to all be aligned, centre of excellences, all to be aligned into a cluster and a community that the people within that area that haven't seen investment from the Lib Dem days right through to the Labour days. It's probably around 20 years since we've actually gone out to invest in the suburbs rather than the city centre. And Liverpool has had a period of time where it's had to invest in the city centre, and I agree with that. And I think I was a part of that. And the fact that we invested so much into Liverpool, now we need to just take the foot off the gas and just go to the areas that absolutely need that funding.
Can I just...
Wouldn't it be amazing if we had a different party running our city rather than a proven, fraudulent and corrupt Labour Party? So if we can get out to the four corners of the city about just how fraudulent and corrupt they are, how can anyone vote for them? But then you would say, well, there's only 13% that actually do vote for them, which would be correct. But then you would say, you've got to make the disenfranchised, which equates to about 80%, you've got to give them the fire in the belly for them to come out and vote for the first time. I'm a disenfranchised. I'm sure many in this room are disenfranchised. I'm sure there's many in this room that's never voted before, but you're here. So therefore, there's something that resonates within you that makes you want to come here in order for you to make a change. I'm gambling on the fact that the rest of the city feels the same way. You just need to know. So we just need to get the message out. That's all you need to do is go from here and connect to 10 other people with that message. And that message then will resonate. Once that message is out there of fraud and corruption and the fact that it is Labour Party, and it's undeniable, by the way, how can people vote for them? So our campaign, first and foremost, started off with fraud and corruption, giving fire in the bellies to everyone in order to make sure you're here tonight. The next one was finding the belly to ensure that we get enough counsellors. Now it's all about education. It's fair to say that the 80%, most of them have never voted before and need to be educated on how to vote, so it is seamless. Because when we come to that crunch time, if we haven't got that message over, there's no chance of us winning. You might get people who are upset enough and maybe bothered enough to walk down there, but because they haven't been educated, when they get there, they'll be turned away. If we can get rid of austerity amongst children, then I believe then we can then move on. But I don't think we can move on until we can prove that we can do that. Because then we're just being political, aren't we? We're talking about what we're going to do. And one of the main parts of what I wanted to do here is to show what we have done. So there's no lies. Okay. Anyone else? Any more questions? Yeah. Yes. Yes.
You know the people who put into probably to run the city, are they still here? Have they brought in these new things to ensure that things are done properly? Is that why it's taken?
Oh, so sorry, you're talking about the commissioners?
Yeah.
The commissioners,
So the question is, the commissioners that have come in to the council, have they done things properly? Well, originally the commissioners were brought in to ensure that the wrongs of the past were brought to light. 18 months ago, they were told by the powers that be, which is Labour, not to look any further. Do I feel that the corruption is going on to the same level as before? And the answer is absolutely not. Have there been people in the council who have been caught since, who have been in positions of trust? Yes. So even though the commissioners are there to ensure it doesn't happen, it still happened. My main problem is, and we've said this before in the past, unless you understand the past, it will repeat itself. So when we get into power, we will put forensic accountants to go right through the system and set in stone exactly what they did, how they did it, and why they did it, in order for us to ensure it doesn't happen again. Yeah. Anyone else?
Manifesto say, what would you represent?
It's split into three areas. First one is openness and transparency, and to ensure that we would like to be run by committee, not by a leadership or by a mayor. When Carl spoke before about the possibilities for the same procedures and the same actions to act out again, it would be a lot more difficult for that to happen. On the other side of the coin, it would be about missed opportunities. Beneath missed opportunities would be about how we develop the city. One of the main areas that we really want to get involved with and where we see our really big wins will be in the communities, ensuring that the communities have been reborn again. Because, you know, I'm a kid from the youth centres, so I learned to play table tennis very, very early on. I still play it today now, and I still play it to quite a high level. But it got me off the streets. A lot of my mates got involved in drugs very, very early on, but I never. I played in Liverpool Stadium 5 nights a week, every single week for many, many years. So the youth centres that we lost, that went with Thatcher, and we still have some today, we want to rebuild those, but not just about youth centres, also community centres, also coding centres, also centre of excellences, also conduits for 15, 16-year-old, 17-year-old kids in order to get jobs, also to connect up with local businesses. So, and I've said this many times, so please forgive me this, but I know you haven't been, I don't think you've been here before. We want to reach out, we want to reach out to local companies. Let's use Home and Bargain as an example. We would then go to maybe Walton Youth Centre and put Home and Bargain above the door. It would be Home and Bargain's social responsibility to ensure that those kids have an easier ride from the street into becoming a spark, a joiner, a plumber, or a coder, or a manager, or whatever it may be. It's become centre of excellence as well. Will also be aligned to a local company that has skin in the game, that wants local talent, that wants to be able to give them the option out, that wants to beat its chest in front of the people that it grew up with and say, I'm helping my community. The problem is, it isn't there. There is no conduit there now. There's no option. I tried for many years with someone that had 22 building sites. I've done 1.4 million square foot resurrecting buildings in the city. I used to employ 1,600 people. And yet I couldn't get at the table. And I've got a lot of knowledge on development, building and tourism. And yet I've never been asked once, but would you be upset to know that the head of tourism is about 20 odd years of age? never really having a proper job. And at the head of Regen, which is development planning and pretty much everything else, and has probably given us 8 billion in the last 12 years, is 26 years of age and has never worked in that sector. The idea of a meritocracy based on skill set, not on friendship, is absolutely paramount to our movement. So there's a lot of things in our manifesto. I couldn't spout them off to you now because it's about 18 pages long. But in general, it's about creation, making sure we don't miss out on opportunities, bottom-up politics, ensuring that our money, whatever we gain, whatever we create, now at this moment in time, you raise grant funding, there's a lot of friendships that are already at that table to snaffle up that funding. So even though it's there, it goes out to the same old faces. And there's a lot of people in this room that have never been allowed at that table either. I'm not talking about that table. I'm talking about creating our own table, our own garden. And from that, we generate our own profits. Now, any profits we gain from assets can't be given out as wages. But what you can do is you can generate that profit, put it into a local community, whether it be a building or an asset of some sort, and the rent that comes from that can then pay wages, which can then support the infrastructure that supports the centre of excellence, the youth centre, the area where people can learn to code. All those situations can all come around from some very easy, quick wins at the start. So just based on what Carl just stated then, I think there's roughly around 3,000 people that work for the council, but it's just reminded me of a point. When COVID came and Lifestyles Gym was closed down pretty much right away, all of the staff were given 100% of their money, and then were given a further 20% on top of the money for the fact that they've lost out the opportunity of working overtime. So they never worked the overtime. I'm using this as a litmus for how they do it. Everyone got 100% of the money. Everyone got an increase of 20% on top. So they got 120p in the pound. And then every single one of them went to work for Amazon. I'm just using that as an example of how scared the council are, and also want to befriend. And sometimes difficult decisions need to be made. And if, let's just say they'd have come in at 100 pence in the pound, that additional money could have been used for social care. But now they're pulling back social care. So look, I think our council is extremely poor, has been poor for a long time, is absolutely fraudulent and corrupt, and is absolutely everything that we don't want in a council. But as Carl says, we do not want to become them. And we're starting off with what we believe are the regulations in order that it can never meander to that. So that's, look, I started this off with Kev. First thing I did, and people in this room can verify this, I said I want it to be a committee. I don't want it to be the Lawrence Kenwright Party, and it isn't. Because I want to ensure that it isn't about me. It is absolutely about my city, the city that I love and I want to stay in. And I want to make sure that our kids want to stay in as well.